In today's Leeds news, Roca new loan agreement, Champions League finalists Eye Gruev, more Summerville interest, Leeds have a talented youngster, and today's rumour mill. Morning folks, Jay here on Tuesday the 4th of June with your Leeds United news. Hope you're having a good week so far. We'll crack on, we'll get straight into this. There's a few little bits and pieces. We've got the rumour mill stuff at the end. Just a reminder for everybody, it's in the rumour mill because it's probably not true or it's very loose links towards something, but we'll label it in case it comes back in the future and we'll deal with it when it doesn't. We'll start off with the news that came out this morning, breaking news today around the future of Mark Roca at Leeds United, and according to James Marshman on Twitter, Leeds United and Betis are close to finalising a second consecutive loan move for Mark Roca to head back to Real Betis for a second season in Spain. The report claimed that there was a deal in place between Leeds and Betis for a permanent move for Roca to Betis had Leeds gained promotion to the Premier Division. That not happening, Leeds have been negotiating with Betis around a second consecutive loan move for the player, and according to James Marshman, that is all but done and they are waiting to finalise details on that. Just a reminder on Mark Roca's contract, he has a contract at Leeds United until the summer of 2026, so we'll see what happens with that one. One of the players likely to start moving. There's only Jack Harrison with the other loan option, and we'll see what happens with the other. We've got some slight updates this morning on Diego Llorente, but that's at the very end of the video, so we can get to that in a minute. Moving on to a player that we probably didn't expect to see being linked with a move away from Leeds this summer, and that is Eye Gruev. But according to reports from Sky Sports Germany, Eye Gruev is said to be attracting interest from Champions League finalist Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund are said to be keen on bringing the Bulgarian back to the Bundesliga after one season away, joining Leeds from Werder Bremen last summer. Dortmund said that they had scouts in attendance at the playoff final between Leeds United and Southampton. Now, Archie Gray is an interested party for Dortmund as well. They've been linked repeatedly with him over the last 12 months, so they could have just been having an eye on him, but reports from Sky Germany say that Eye Gruev was also a player that they were keeping an eye of. Gruev has 3 years left on his Leeds United contract and isn't expected to be a player Leeds will offload this summer. However, from an FFP perspective, Leeds could make an immediate profit on the player should they decide to sell. Leeds brought Gruev in from Werder Bremen this time last year for £5 million, and the fee that's been rumoured in Germany that Dortmund are looking at offering Leeds is in and around £10 million, which would double Leeds' initial investment in the Bulgarian central defensive midfielder. We'll have to wait and see what happens in this. He was an important player towards the back end of the season. He does a tidy job in the midfield for Leeds in terms of cleaning things up and his tackling, and it's an important role in there, but whether Leeds want to be slightly more dynamic in the middle of the park next season remains to be seen. Farke tends to be more pragmatic with the Gruev and Kamara partnership, which is fairly defensive, but they play two very different defensive roles, so maybe Daniel Farke is looking at that as well. But at the moment, yeah, an interesting link for Gruev to Dortmund this morning. Moving on to the Crescencio Summerville stuff, I've tried to stay away from this as much as I can because every club and their sister has been linked with a move for Chris Summerville at this stage, but there is some new interest this morning, so we'll go through it real quickly. According to the Sun, Bournemouth have now joined the race to sign Leeds winger Crescencio Summerville and are interested in adding another Leeds United player to their midst. Chelsea, Liverpool, Dortmund, Newcastle, Crystal Palace and now Bournemouth are all said to be in the race to sign the Dutch winger. 31 goals and assists in 46 games last season was a good return for any player, but specifically Crescencio Summerville on what was really his first real full season in the Leeds United side. However, including even with the Red Bull investment, he is the most likely player to leave Leeds United this summer. Leeds value Chris Summerville rumoured between 30 and 45 million pounds, and the more clubs that are said to be involved in this, the better it is for Leeds in terms of negotiating a higher sale of the player, especially with Chelsea in the mix, whose scouting network seems to be whoever Liverpool, Man City and Newcastle are looking at. They'll dip into that second and double the amount of money for them. They've been funding Brighton for 2 years, so probably could fund Leeds for a little bit as well. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that one there. There are some unsubstantiated reports going around as well, though, that Liverpool are already in talks with Leeds around a move for the player. But as I say, those reports are unsubstantiated and from unreliable sources. They're coming from a few from Team Talk and a few from Football Insider, so nothing you could really label any kind of credibility behind. Bournemouth for me would fall into the bracket along with West Ham and Fulham, who are also said to have interest in Summerville, but would be in that bracket of interested, yes, unrealistic, yes, also, just given that they probably won't have the finances to afford a deal, and if Summerville's got options like Chelsea, Liverpool, Dortmund and Newcastle, chances are he's not going to go for a club to be mid to lower half of the table next season. So interested, yes, but likely probably not. Moving on to a young player at Leeds United who's got some praise over the course of the weekend, and with the internationals now taking place for the summer, we're going to start hearing interviews from players that we don't normally hear from during the year because the way the press conferences are done in the Championship. But one player has got a little bit of praise from his international manager, and that player is Charlie Crew. Wales manager Rob Page has labelled the player as a special player with so much potential in the future. Page, full clip of what he said on this is the following. He has a load of potential, and that's the key. That's the word for it at the minute. I want to have a look at him firsthand, and I want to work with him and train with him. Page went on to say, but for now, the potential he has shown at Leeds, being involved with that group of players and listening to the manager and how he speaks about him, and having seen him myself, he has talent in abundance. It's exciting to have another 17-year-old central midfielder coming through the ranks at Leeds, who is now already training with a full Welsh international squad. Page did, however, say if Wales had qualified for the Euros, the chances of Charlie Crew being involved in that squad were slim to none, but he wants to have a good look at him and is using these friendlies to have a look at him. We've seen Joe Rodon and Conor Roberts pull out the Welsh squad this week as well, and Liam Cooper picked up an injury with Scotland that you would hope doesn't rule him out of his internationals this summer. And then finally today, to wrap everything up, we'll move into the rumour mill territory and we'll talk about that. And according to reports from HITC Sport, Leeds are interested in Sheffield United out of contract attacker Daniel Jebbison. Jebbison has failed to agree a new deal with Sheffield United, who are very keen to lock the player down to a new deal this summer. And HITC Sports says Leeds technical director Greta Steinson, who spotted Jebbison playing against Everton, wants to bring the player in for his physicality and add that to the youth ranks. They also say that Everton, Brighton and Ipswich are keen on the player as well. Jebbison has played once for Sheffield United last season, has got 2 goals in his career since he's been there. He's 20 years of age, he's an England Under-20 international and scored 1 goal in 5 international appearances for the England Under-20s, and is seen as a young up-and-coming attacking player. Leeds have been linked with a couple of young strikers at the moment. We've got our own young striker at the moment with Matteo Joseph, and what Leeds are trying to do. Jebbison would likely go into the Under-21 mix depending on his actual date of birth, but would likely go into the Under-21 mix for next season and give Leeds a little bit more firepower in there, a bit more experience in that side, giving them the amount of under-18s that are likely to move into that squad next season. Said on this as well, people will ask, why are Leeds looking at youth players when they need first team players? Leeds have 2 different departments for recruitment, and they're looking at 2 different sets of players. There's the youth ranks who are doing youth recruitment. Steinson oversees all of that, obviously. But just because they're looking at youth players doesn't mean they've stopped looking at senior players, and that gets asked every year. So just to clarify that before it gets asked. And then finally today, the update on the Diego Llorente situation. We mentioned it yesterday. The player is very, very keen not to come back to Leeds, and the Roma sporting director Florian Grisolfi is set to meet with the Roma hierarchy today to discuss the future of Diego Llorente and whether the club will come to Leeds and make a move for the player. Reports from Sky Italia say that Roma want to close a deal for the player as quickly as possible and move on with the remainder of their summer targets. However, it will depend on what the Roma hierarchy want. Grisolfi is going to have a conversation with them, but that's not a guarantee that will actually happen. The report says that there is no deal currently in place nothing formal in place between the 2 clubs, but that Llorente on his recent Instagram post said that he waits with excitement for a conclusion this summer to this, and is looking to head back to Roma on loan or permanent move for what would be his 3rd campaign. 6 months in his first full season last year, and then heading into a 3rd campaign this year. So wait and see what happens there, but unlikely we'll see Diego Llorente back at Leeds. If it's a case that Roma want to get a deal done, there's a £4.5 million rumour floating around. We'll wait and see what happens there, but it's likely to be a loan if they can get a loan deal done. But for Leeds, I would imagine they'll try and get the player off their books if they can, but I will update you on that as and when we get some information on it. That's it for me today, folks. Massive thanks as always. I will see you tomorrow morning for more Leeds news. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you then. See you. Bye.